everyone, it's Carol here. How's it going? Today I thought I'd show you how to make this black tears necklace. It's quite a long necklace. It has a 72 centimetre chain and it is made with these acrylic black teardrops. They're faceted. I absolutely love these. So let's have a look at what you will need to make this necklace. To make this necklace you will need 72 centimetres of black chain. You'll also need one of these heart connectors. This one is Tibetan silver and it's got 5 loops at the bottom and 1 at the top. You will need 5 of these acrylic faceted teardrops. You'll need 8 of these 10mm jump rings, 5 10 by 8mm faceted glass rondelles, 8 6mm faceted black beads. Now these ones have an AB finish on them. You'll need 7 of these 3mm black balls, 1 9mm Tibetan silver bead cap, 3 of these 4mm black jump rings. You'll need 2 crimp beads, 1 head pin. Now this one is a 5 centimetre black one. And you'll also need some 26 gauge wire and a piece of tiger tail. You don't need much of these, just a little bit. The first thing I'm going to do is attach the faceted teardrops to the jump rings, and I'm going to do that with a piece of 26 gauge wire and a wire wrapped loop. So I'm going to take my wire. I've got a piece about 20, maybe 25 centimetres, so not very big, and I'm going to thread it through the hole in the teardrop. And I'm only threading it through by about 2 or 3 centimetres and bringing the ends up. Next I'm going to cross over the ends, so cross the short one over the long one or the other way. And I'm just going to hold the ends where they cross between my thumb and my forefinger and just twist around a couple of times. I find sometimes this is easier to do than trying to wrap the wire around the other wire. And now we have this. Next we're going to take our flush cutters, and using the flush side of our flush cutters we're going to trim off the wire. The reason we use the flush side is so that the cut is nice and straight. And then take your chain nose pliers and just bend, just squeeze in any ends, making sure there's nothing sharp. So that's what it looks like now. Now it's not neat, it doesn't need to be because it will be covered, and I quite like the messy loops anyway. Next we're going to attach the jump ring, and we're going to do that by using our round nose pliers. Now I'm going to put the wire at the top of where I've wrapped before, between the jaws, and it's about 1 centimetre from the end of the jaws of the pliers, and I'm going to just push the wire back around underneath the jaws and bring it up towards me. So it's going all the way around and then it's coming back underneath the other jaw. Now taking my pliers out, I'm going to attach the jump ring, so sliding it onto the wire and just popping it through the loop so that you have something that looks like that. Now this jump ring is not quite closed, and I don't need it to be fully closed because I am going to open it soon, but I don't want my loop to fall off, so I'll just give it a quick squeeze. Okay. Now using my chain nose pliers, I'm going to take my loop and just hold it at the bottom where the wires crossed. And I'm going to wrap around and around. And it doesn't need to be neat, it just needs to be covering, oops, it doesn't need to be wrapped tightly though, covering those previous loops. Now this necklace is kind of, it doesn't need to be neat at all, it's kind of chunky, and I quite like the messy loops, so I don't mind if they're messy. You can do neat loops if you like. So I'm going to take my cutters and just cut that wire on the back, holding the end so it doesn't fly away with this flush side of my cutters. And once again, take your chain nose pliers and just give them a little squeeze to make sure that the end is not poking out. And there's one of your drops. Now you need 5 of these. So now I have my 5 teardrop components, and I'm going to attach them now to my heart component, the connector. And to do this, I'm actually going to use 2 pairs of pliers because these jump rings are quite thick, and so they are quite hard to open. So I'm just going to take my pliers and using 1 pair of pliers on each side. So I've got 2 pairs of chain nose pliers here, and I'm going to hold them on either side of the ring and rotate, 1 up and 1 down. I'm just going to put this out of the way. Next, I'm going to take my heart component and just loop the component onto the jump ring, and then I'm going to reverse the process to close it, so holding it on either side and reverse. Now if it doesn't close properly the first time, just give it a bit of a wiggle and a push until you hear that click, which means that it's closed. So that's what it'll look like, and I'm going to repeat that with all 5 of the teardrop. There you have it, 1 heart component with the 5 teardrops attached. Next, we're going to make the chain component. What I have done here is I've actually laid the beads out in the order that we're going to string them. So I do this with every project. I always lay them out first because I'm really good at getting it wrong. Let's string the beads. Obviously, I'm just going to string them in the order that they are laid out. So now I have my beads laid out in the order, or strung on in the order that I need them, with my jump ring in the middle. Now obviously I could have put my jump ring on later, but it's actually easier to make sure that it's closed first and then just string it on with the beads. I'm going to leave my stopper bead there while I put my crimp on and attach my chain. Next I'm going to take my tiger tail and I'm going to thread on a crimp bead. Once again, it's sometimes easier to do it laying on the table rather than holding it in your hand. Then I'm going to put on a jump ring. And then I'm going to go back down through the crimp bead, making sure that the jump ring is in the loop of the tiger tail. I'm just going to pull it all the way down like this. Now you can see that I've left a little bit of space here between the beads. That's okay. The reason I'm doing that is so that I have some space to work on the other end. Okay. Now I want to pull my crimp bead up towards my jump ring as far as I can, or reasonably far, so that I only have a small loop. Not sure if you can see that. And then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm going to squeeze my crimp bead really tightly. and I'm going to give it a bit of a test to make sure that it's not going to pull. So that's what I have. Next, I'm going to take my flush cutters and just cut off that end of the tiger tail, nice and close to the crimp bead. Okay, so that's what it should, whoops. That's what it should look like now. Now I'm going to feed my beads back up towards that so that they're sitting nice and close up with the jump ring and the tiger tail. I'm actually going to trim that a little bit closer, I think. There we go. That's better. And now I'm going to take off my stopper bead off the other end, and I'm going to feed on my crimp bead. Next I'm going to put on a jump ring and feed my wire or my tiger tail back down through my crimp. And I'm just going to actually move my crimp bead up a bit so that I can get the tiger tail through, and I can pull it down once I've got it through. Just makes it a little easier. This is a classic example of what not to do. You can see there that my jump ring has actually fallen down underneath my crimp as I've threaded it through. So I'll unthread it, make sure that it's on the right side, and thread it back through. So that's what I'm aiming for. Now I'm just going to pull it really tight, so making sure that it's nice and close down towards the beads. And you can actually use your pliers to hold your jump ring if it's a little slippery like mine is. And just give it a good pull, and then just use your pliers to squeeze that crimp bead. So your aim here is to make sure that you've got no gaps in your string here. And when you're sure, you just give your crimp bead a squeeze. Now I completely missed mine. And give it the test, make sure it's not going to move, and then trim off your excess tiger tail, nice and close with the flush side of your cutters. Like that. Okay, so that's the chain part or beaded part of the component, beaded component of the necklace. And next, I think we'll attach it to the chain. So here I have my chain. As I said, I've got 72 centimeters of it, so it's a long necklace. Obviously you could make this shorter if you wanted to. And I'm just going to use my pliers to open my jump ring. And thread on my chain. And then close my jump ring. Making sure it's nicely tucked in so there's no gap. Okay, and repeat it on the other side. So just taking my jump ring and my pliers and using my other pliers to open it. You probably want to make sure that the chain's not really twisted, and then just put it onto your jump ring. And then just use your other pair of pliers just to close it. Make sure it's nice and tightly closed so that there's no gap. So that's what you're aiming for. Next, we're going to make this piece here, which is the dangle in the middle of the heart. So we're going to take a head pin and put on a ball. Then we're going to take our bead cap and pop it on, facing upwards, and then our bead. Next, I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to bend the wire at the top of the bead. So I'm actually bending it about, I don't know, 2 or 3 millimeters above the top of the bead. Now I'm going to take my round nose pliers and make a loop. So popping it in between the jaws and twisting it, bending it around the jaws, repositioning onto the bottom jaw and bringing the wire up towards me. So this is a wrapped loop, so I'm just going to hold my loop with my pliers, whoops, and I'm going to take my other pair of chain nose pliers and wrap it around. Whoopsie. Once again, this one doesn't need to be neat, it's just about holding it on there. Oh dear, these pliers don't have much grip, these old ones here with the long nose. So sometimes they're a little challenging to use. Okay, now I'm going to take my flush cutters and cut off the end. And just tucking in anything that's poking out. Once again, messy wrap is how I roll, so it's nice and messy. Next I'm going to attach it. So how I attach this, I'll just show you on this one, is I'm wondered quite a lot. I initially attached it to the loop here and it wouldn't hang, so I actually ended up attaching it with a jump ring, with one of the large jump rings. So I'm going to do that now. So taking my drop that I just made, I'm going to pop that on my jump ring and I'm just going to pop on my, now you need to make sure you do this on the back because you want all of that wire work just to hang on the back rather than the front. Attach that, and then I'm also going to add on 2 more jump rings onto this and close it up. Make sure it's nicely closed. Sometimes it helps to give it a little squeeze that way as well. So there's our component. So next, of course, you have to add it to your necklace. And we do that by adding it to the jump ring that we left in the middle of those beads. Now obviously I didn't need to use 2 jump rings here, I could have just done it with 1, but I really like the look of the 2 jump rings. So I'm just going to pop that one on there. It's a bit tricky because it is a very small jump ring and you're going to try and get 2 very large pieces of wire through it. Okay, so I've got my 2 jump rings through and I'm just going to close them up. There's one. And the other. So there you go, attached, and that's it. So there are quite a few components in this necklace, and it is a little bit trickier to make just because of it's a little bit tricky in this area here, getting the 2 jump rings into the other jump ring, etc. and a little bit of wire wrapping, but it is worth it. It's a really cool, funky necklace, and I hope you have enjoyed it, and maybe you'll make one. Obviously you can make it in a different colour if you wanted. We have these teardrops in lots of different colours, and I would love to see anything that you make, so drop me a bell and tell me what you've done with this. Have a great day. Thank you for watching.